You are now watching The Lone Blown. Blown! Yo, what's happening, YouTube? You're back here at The Lone Blown, and today we're going to be going over the Charizard VMAX Deck Profile. Welcome back to the channel. If you've already watched for a minute, you already know what's up. If you haven't watched for a while, be sure to hit that subscribe button right underneath the video. Make sure that you can stay tuned because I hope you're going to love this content. And while you're at it, like the video too and tell a couple of your friends. Jumping into it, Charizard VMAX is one of the best VMAX Pokemon coming out in Darkness Ablaze. What makes it so good? Well, the fact that it's a Charizard helps because Charizards are always busted. If you're looking to build this deck after, be sure to check out the description tab because it shows the deck list, but also be prepared to save up a few months of rent because Charizards are typically expensive. We have Charizard VMAX doing Claw Swipe for 100 damage for 3 energies, which is kind of meh. It's 330 HP is busted, but the big attack, and the reason why we are playing this card, is because of G-Max Wildfire. For Fire, 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 Colorless, Colorless, it does 300 damage. You discard 2 energies from this Pokemon after that, but 300 damage is close enough to knocking out an Eternatus VMAX. So you might be like, yo Zach, close enough isn't close enough because you could lose a game by 10 damage, and in one way you're right, but just stay tuned for this deck profile because I'll explain how this deck can do a little bit more and knock out an Eternatus VMAX. Every VMAX Pokemon has to start off with a Pokemon V, and we're starting off with Charizard V because that's the way that it goes. Charizard V, 220 HP, 3 energies, Claw Swipe for 80, Fire, Fire, Colorless, Colorless, Fire Spin, 220, discard 2 Fire Energy from this Pokemon, or 2 Energy I should say. Charizard V is very much a little form of Charizard VMAX. It's the exact same attacks, very similar attack costs. It's just not as good. I mean, it's not bad because on the first turn you could go Welder, knock out a Jirachi, or another Pokemon that has 80 or less HP. But Charizard VMAX is really the star of the show here. Charizard V does have 220 HP though, so it can hold its own. If you ever fall into a situation, do not scoff at 220 damage. Since I'm North America's resident Welder fire type guy player, I know a few things about the decks. I know that they're a little bit more consistent with cards such as Jirachi. That's why I want to include 4 in this deck. I think Jirachi's a great way of searching out Welder and other trainer cards that we might need throughout the duration of our games. Another thing that I know is that you want your decks to be consistent because Welder decks can sometimes be inconsistent. That's why we have 2 copies here of Dedenne-GX. The 2 copies of the Dedenne-GX are for us to really chase getting Welders and other cards that we might need. We also have a new copy of Crobat V. Its ability Night Asset allows you to draw cards until you have 6 cards in your hands. The bonus things about Welder decks receiving Crobat V is that you now have Dedenne-GX and Crobat, so you could only use 1 Dedenne change before. You could only use 1 Nightly Asset per turn. Now you can use both and kind of come up with a combination of, do you want to discard cards? Yes, you do. No, you don't. Do you just want to draw cards? Some combination of the 2 to make the deck more consistent. Another consistency card is adding an Eldegoss in here. Eldegoss V will allow us to utilize Welder and some of the other supporter cards that we do have in this deck as well. We have a copy of Heatran-GX, so if we want to get off at first turn 130 damage, or potentially even a knockout upwards of 150 damage, we can use Heatran-GX to quickly win games. Also, later on in the game, if we have a bunch of Fire Energies in play, we can knock out a VMAX Pokemon for a lot of damage. One of my favorite cards in the game, Victini V. Victini V allows us to quickly power up our Pokemon with Spreading Flames, and if our opponent's Pokemon has enough energy, we could do a decent bit of damage with Energy Burst. We have Volcanion here, and that's just for us to use Flare Starter. We could power up our Charizard or other Pokemon on the first turn very quickly. And then we have Galarian Zigzagoon, which is one part of the strategy in order to bring G-Max Wildfire's 300 damage to even more damage. It wouldn't be a Welder deck without Welders in it, so we do have 4 copies of Welder. This allows us to accelerate energy into play and draw some cards while we're at it. Just to make this deck a little bit more consistent, I did add in a single copy of Professor's Research. I don't typically do this with Welder decks, but I do think it's worthwhile because this deck, not to give any spoilers, it does play triple acceleration energy, which is kind of like a Welder. We can dig through and search through our deck. We also play a copy of Boss's Orders here. Similar thing, since we don't play Ninetales from Team Up, it is something that allows us to bring up our Pokemon. Maybe the Professor's Research will get cut for a Boss's Order in future iterations of this deck. We have 3 copies of Giant Hearth. Giant Hearth will allow us to discard cards. I mean, we don't really care about discarding cards too much because Victini Prism Star is a card that did rotate. Giant Hearth, though, is a card that allows us to grab Fire Energies to power up Welder so we can attach extra energies per turn. We also have 2 copies of Vitality Band. So again, the second part out of 3 to do more damage. So with a Zigzagoon and a Vitality Band, we're hitting for 320. That's enough to knock out most VMAX Pokemon. We just need to hit 2 more damage counters in order to be able to knock out an Eternatus VMAX. Like most decks in Standard, we do have 4 copies here of Quick Ball. Quick Ball is an absolutely busted card in a deck like this because it allows us to search out all of our consistency cards, such as Dedenne-GX Crobat V, Eldegoss V, Jirachi, and we do need to evolve into a Charizard VMAX, so it will allow us to get out whatever we're looking for, giving us plenty of options here. We also have 4 copies of Pokémon Communication. Every VMAX Pokemon is treated like an evolution card, so we do need to have a way that we could search non-basic Pokemon out. Considering we have so many Pokemon in this deck, you could just see it looks like a lot of Pokemon. That's usually the way that Pokemon Communication works. The more Pokemon you have, the higher chance you have one of having in your hand to put away with Pokemon Communication. So this could also double as a consistency card as well as searching out Charizard VMAX. Scoop Up Net is the third part of us doing extra damage, so we could do extra damage with Zigzagoon by Scoop Up Net and using its ability over and over again. So if we use Zigzagoon 3 times with Scoop Up Net and Vitality Band, we can knock out an Eternatus VMAX in 1 shot. And if you don't quite get the 1 shot, you'd always do it the next turn with Scoop Up Nets as long as you have Galarian Zigzagoon. It's also a great way to get Jirachi out of the active position because of its Stellar Witch ability putting it to a sleep. We no longer have a skateboard in the format, so it's really worthwhile there. Similar enough, we have 4 copies of Switch. We use that for Jirachi, among other ways. Sometimes we just want to get out of the active spot in the deck. And finally, we have 2 copies of Fire Crystal. That's just if you need to discard Fire Energies or if you're looking for a card to discard. Fire Crystal allows you to utilize that. We could also get back a few Fire Energies at once to use with Welder. We have quite a few Fire Energies in this deck. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 energies seems like an appropriate amount for us just to have enough energies to use with Welder, grab a Giant Hearth, attach with Volcanion, get some in our discard pile for Victini V. And we have 2 copies of Triple Acceleration Energy, so when we're using Charizard VMAX's G-Max Wildfire, the 2 energies that we can discard could just be 1 Triple Acceleration Energy. So we can go Welder, and then have those Welders, and then just discard the Triple Acceleration Energies. So overall, we have a competitive Charizard VMAX deck. Looking at this deck, it looks incredibly consistent, especially for a deck like this. It is Welder decks can be a little bit inconsistent, but I'm looking at this list, and it seems like there's not really much else that we could do. Cards that I would like to add in here would probably be another Galarian Zigzagoon. I could see that being incredibly strong, or other ways, if there's any, to increase our damage output. Whether it's an ability or another Pokemon that adds damage counters, that'd be something that'd be really cool for this deck. I could also see us cutting the Professor's Research for another Boss's Orders. But you want to know what? That's only going to come from testing, so let me know how your testing goes with this deck in the comments below. Tell me how you feel about this deck, any thoughts that you have even if you don't test. Love to hear from you. Until next time, take it easy, peeps. Really hope that you enjoyed watching that video. I totally enjoyed making it. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like the video, share the video with everyone that you know, and subscribe to the channel as well. Totally appreciate all the support. We got a lot of cool things happening on the channel, so stay tuned for more. Be sure to check out the social links in the description. Thanks and have yourself a great one.